After seeing Mammoth WVH make their stadium debut on the opening night of their current trek with Guns N' Roses, we drove back from Hershey, Pennsylvania with a pile of questions building up and decided to reach out and get Wolfgang Van Halen on the phone. I'm Matt Wardlaw for Ultimate Classic Rock. Make sure that you're subscribed to this UCR channel and go ahead and hit the notifications button so you'll receive all of our latest videos and interviews just like this one. With the group nearly 2 weeks into their inaugural tour introducing the Mammoth WVH album to the world, we wanted to check status to find out how things are going. We found Van Halen in a jovial mood, excited about the headlining performance that was on tap for the next night in Cleveland, Ohio. Here's our interview. Before you hit the road, can you kind of take us through rehearsals and working up the material for the road, what that kind of looked like?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much just took 4 weeks and just butchered all the material. I spent some time and put together what I thought would be a good set list for a half hour, for 45, and for like an hour plus. And then throughout us just kind of playing, like we picked each tuning, like which songs were in drop D, which songs were in standard, and which were in, a couple alternate tunings. And we just kind of spent days going, okay, let's do all of these. Let's do all of these. We had all the time to. And then after a couple weeks, then we started running the set lists and started seeing what flowed better. And then, and then after 4 weeks, that's kind of where we ended up.
Well, you lived so long with these songs. Like, once you kind of get into rehearsals, what were kind of the challenges?
It was, there really actually wasn't too many challenges because the guys in my band are so great. It just kind of seemed to come pretty easily. I think the biggest thing for us was trying to maybe spice the songs up for a live setting. There are certain things like the song Mammoth, for instance, we played a bit differently. We add a couple things to it. There's a handful of songs that have like kind of different endings just to kind of be spiced up for live and stuff like that.
It might be a little bit early on this, but that's obviously that's something that comes out a lot with like bands, is that like you record the songs and then it's like there's what they kind of turn into live once you start getting to play them live. Like, so are there any of the songs that you've seen kind of like start to morph as you guys are playing them out on the road?
Yeah, Mammoth is definitely one of them. And I feel like Epiphany. I feel like at a certain point, that little intro that we kind of do might become some sort of jam at some point. You never really know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just fun how the songs kind of take on a life of their own.
One of the things that I was really impressed with seeing the show in Hershey is the fact that, including yourself, there's 3 guitar players on stage. And as I was, telling some folks, unlike some bands that I've seen, you're not just letting Frank and John, in this case, do all the heavy lifting. So how did you kind of go about divvying up who plays what?
It was kind of what was most comfortable. I think there are just certain things where it's like we're singing here. It's like, hey, how about you do that, and we'll flip that around. And it just kind of was like what we were most comfortable with. I mean, sometimes the parts are a bit more difficult to do. Like I think there's this one thing in Stone, where in the second pre-chorus, I'm doing the high guitar melody while singing, and that's kind of a weird thing to do, but it's just kind of, it was like they were doing the other thing, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll try it. And it just kind of stuck.
Yeah, Stone is a mother of a song, and I know that a lot of folks are happy that you guys are playing that.
Oh, it's probably collectively our favorite to play, all of us. It's a really fun one.
One of our other writers, who's also a guitar player, was just as intrigued as I was about the 3 guitar thing. We both kind of wondered what was kind of the impetus for going with the 3 guitar setup.
Basically, the main thing was I didn't want tracks, and that's why I got John, because it was initially the 4 of us: Frank, Ronnie, Garrett, and I. And then I went to a concert right before the pandemic. I saw Clint Lowry open for Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
And I saw John at Clint's band, and I thought he was an amazing singer, an amazing guitar player. And I was like, I want you. You're mine. And so that's kind of how that happened. Basically, I think it's a cop-out to use tracks unless it's like for like a keyboard part that you can't necessarily get.
Totally.
But like when I hear about certain bands these days where it's like you have lead vocals and like lead guitars pumping through the tracks, like I think that's lame as hell. I think you should just stay home and listen to, shit on Spotify if you're going to play tracks like that. and I'm proud to say that we don't have a single track running on our in our show. And I think it's because we have John there. Before John, Frank and I were picking which guitar parts to play, and
Hmm.
Ronnie and I were picking which harmonies to sing. But with John there, we can literally take care of every single thing that's on the album, and we don't have to replicate it with the track.
Yeah, that definitely stuck out. I think it was, again, I think it was Stone, where it's like I saw you doing double duty. It's like you're doing both guitar and keyboards. So yeah, that stuck out that
Yeah,
you
and
guys were. Yeah,
there's
sorry.
also a in the fourth or in the second pre-chorus, there's a four-part harmony, and we're doing that live.
Oh,
And it feels
fantastic.
really badass to be like, we don't have to fucking sit there with tracks. We're just straight up doing it. And I
Well,
think it's important. You know, it's certainly not perfect all the time, but that's the point of live performance. You know, it ebbs and flows.
yeah, I'm glad you get that though, because I think that you've seen enough on social media that like there's plenty of people that are not going to pick up on the fact that a band's using tracks, but there's lots of
Hmm.
folks that are totally tuned into that, and they hate when they see a band that's doing that. Like it cheapens it.
Well, and then also that you have the case when I was in Van Halen, people thought I was using tracks, but I wasn't. So it's kind of a compliment.
Yeah. Well, you start off the touring run with a couple of smaller club shows prior to starting the GNR dates.
Hmm.
Our editor wanted to know what are kind of the differences between gigs like that and the opening slot on the GNR shows, as far as how you and the band have to perform from a physical standpoint in order to kind of project in a way that you're able to reach the back of the venue.
Yeah, I think it's different. It's kind of they're actually kind of similar. Like in a way, the pressure's off for the Guns show because you know they have it's such a huge venue, but they have the cameras and you're popping up on the sides of the screens and stuff. But with but you know at a certain point you're doing your best to try and entertain people who otherwise don't really give a shit about you.
Hmm.
Which is like that's totally like I don't have a problem with that. That's exactly what you're signing up for. We're the opening band. We're here to be the jesters to lead everybody to Guns, and I'm totally happy with that. And it's a really good time. But with the I think with the headliners, that's what kind of makes me more nervous, is because everybody's paying more attention because they chances are they're bigger fans than the Guns shows would otherwise have. So you feel more of an obligation to make sure they have a really good time because they went out of their way.
I got to tell you, it was interesting seeing the Hershey show because I know what you're talking about being the opening band and kind of the split in the audience. And I think this is one of the first times where the people that were there were super engaged in your band, even if they didn't know your band. And I really haven't seen that. Like, one of my favorite moments of the night was that there was a guy sitting next to me, and he was clearly just enthralled with what you guys were doing. And he leans over to me and he says, "Hey, isn't this the band that has that guy that's like the son of that one guy?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Which guy?" And I said, "It's the singer." And he just goes, "Holy shit, dude." So that was the whole night was really cool, but that was the moment that really made it.
That's really funny.
So it just was funny like that he didn't even like mention the name. He's just like son of that guy. So yeah. So
Well, that's cool.
yeah,
I like that people don't really know. That's my favorite. I
yeah,
like to kind of give them that first impression without people coming into it with ideas of what it already is, or
sure.
expecting to hear like a Van Halen song or something.
Well, going to the first night in Lawrence, Kansas, after running the set with the band in private, what were kind of the moments that you loved getting to finally play those songs in front of people? And I guess on the flip side, as you come away from that first gig, like what was there to kind of tweak as far as adjustments you felt like you needed to make?
After the first couple shows, it was a matter of the set list and moving some things around,
Yeah,
just in general tunings. Like maybe it didn't make sense to swap a guitar there, and it made more sense to kind of stick with that. So just kind of little things like that, which is why I'm excited for Cleveland tomorrow, so we can really because we haven't had a little headline show since those first two shows. So I'm very excited to get back into that environment.
totally. Yeah, absolutely. And what did that like on the other flip side of things? What did that first stadium gig in Hershey feel like?
A lot of nerves beforehand,
Hmm.
but I think after it just kind of happened, it was a huge relief because I think the first bit of the tour, you know, having the two headliners and then the first Hershey show, um, was a lot of anxiety just because it was the first one. And so as soon as I was over that hump, I started to feel a bit more relief. And then now I think I've gotten a bit more comfortable for the last couple shows.
Where do you think that came from? Because like when you and I first spoke a couple months ago, like you noted that like you had played venues this size with Van Halen, like so. Um, what was the difference?
I think it's just because I'm all on my own, and
Yeah,
I'm also just a very anxious person to begin with.
sure.
So it's always kind of there.
So when we spoke, you hadn't gotten to see GNR play at that point. So as a fan and a fellow musician, what was most intriguing for you finally getting to see GNR play live?
Oh, I was just it was really special because they for the first show in Hershey they invited us up to the little soundboard standing area, and it was just amazing to see their whole show with the video and the lights, and there's nothing like seeing it's been so long I haven't seen a live show in forever. It was nothing like it.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see, and I was surprised with the stuff that they were playing. Like I can't believe they even played like Slither,
Hmm.
the Velvet Revolver song. I thought that was badass, and that new song Kicks Ass 2 that just came out,
Yep. Yep.
Absurd. So it was really cool to see.
Yeah, I will concur with you. That was my first live show in, a year and a half. So just seeing a live show really was something. So it was cool.
Yeah, it was just the whole experience.
What sort of interactions have you had with Axl at this point? I know he was like, one of the guys that you hadn't met prior to the tour.
Yeah, we last night we were hanging out outside the bus, and everybody was starting to kind of come out, and he ended up walking out, and he gave me a hug.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he told me that he really liked Don't Back Down, and that he really liked the video.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, he gave me a hug. I couldn't believe it. He was a really sweet guy.
I tell you what, man, you know that you hit the mark with that video when Axl tells you thumbs up.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't fucking believe it because the other day Duff came to our dressing room, and he's a sweetheart as well, and he was telling us how Axl said that Don't Back Down is just straight fucking rock and roll, and I thought that was like the biggest compliment I could have heard.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I thought that was pretty. It still feels like a dream. I can't believe it. But yeah, Axl was a sweetheart, really really kind guy.
So, what has been the most challenging song to play live?
A song that I've been nervous to play. We haven't played it yet, but I really want to. Is Horribly Right.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because there's this one note that's really hard, and if I miss it, it'll completely fuck the whole song up. So I think once we're in the middle of the tour and I'm warmed up and I'm comfortable, we'll be able to hit it. It's just a matter of making sure I'm comfortable because I'm super nervous about doing it.
I figured it had to be something like that because I've talked to various bands. I think most recently I talked to like Waddy Wachtel, who plays with Stevie Nicks, and he was
Hmm.
talking. I think it was Edge of 17. He was telling the drummer Russ Kunkel, he's like,
Yeah,
there's a thing that you did in that song that he's like, if I get off track in that song, he's like, I can never get back to the right place. So I kind of
yeah,
figured with Horribly Right, it could be something along those lines.
yeah, exactly. It's almost like or something like with Tool, like the song Ticks and Leeches. It's like
Yeah.
that song, like fucking Maynard's like screaming the whole time. So I know they usually save that for like the end of the tour as a
Hmm.
just in case. So I guess it's kind of like that.
Yeah, Tool's a whole nother thing, and I know you're a big fan, but it's just like you see a lot of those songs, and you're just like, how are they doing that, and
Yeah,
how do they stay on track like they do? It's pretty amazing.
exactly.
Well, when you're not playing shows, have you had the chance to get out and do anything fun in any of the cities that you've been in?
Not too much. I was going to go out to the Rock Hall of Fame out here, but
Yeah,
I'm so tired and I want to make sure I'm rested for tomorrow that it's like you kind of err on the side of caution,
that makes
you know.
sense. Yeah.
So it's kind of a bummer to be like an antisocial dork and stay on the bus, but in the long run, I think you end up doing a little better live.
This is, I mean, you've obviously had a lot of touring experience, whether it's Van Halen or Tremonti or whatever. Like, are there things that you typically enjoy doing on tour? Because what made me think of asking that was like, as I was telling our editor, like, Geddy Lee from Rush, like he liked to visit ballparks when he was out on tour. So is there anything that you like particularly usually enjoy when you're on tour?
Not too much, honestly. I really just like to. I'm an antisocial dork, so most often if there isn't something interesting in the city that I want to do, I kind of just stay on the bus and sleep and or play video games.
Okay. All right. Well, the second part, as far as video games, that was the editor's guess. So there we go. He partially wins one.
And then also there's this my bass player Ronnie has this awesome small Taylor acoustic bass,
Oh, cool.
and I found out that they make a guitar version of it too. So when I get to LA, I really want to pick one up so I can start riding on the bus with like a little smaller acoustic guitar.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, some tunes. You've started playing "Talk and Walk," which is the Japanese bonus track. Some folks that
Hmm.
so folks that have the regular album won't have heard it, but it's obviously readily accessible, like via YouTube. Can you talk
Hmm.
about that song a bit? Like, what's the history on that one?
Yeah, there was just kind of one that was always like an extra. And when it, Japan always wants a bonus track, it just seemed like the right thing to throw on there. And for live, it just seemed like a fun little bonus for the fans who are fans of the album. And if most people at Guns who haven't heard the album, it's not really much of a difference.
Right.
So
And what about "As Long as You're Not You"? I don't think you've played that one yet. What's the deal
yeah,
with that
that's
one?
another one of those tracks that we're kind of keeping in our back pocket. That if we ever need to break the glass for emergency and throw out another song, that's another one that we've got.
Very nice.
So we might play it at some point, but we'll see.
At the Hershey show, I was impressed with how well everything went over, as I said, and in particular, a lot of bands would just bring the heavy set, but you had stuff like Resolve and Distance in there, and folks dug it. Like, what sort of trepidation did you have putting the set list together for those GNR shows?
I think for the GNR shows, it was really important to kind of show what the band is capable of.
Yeah,
At least for the first couple shows, and then we're starting to move stuff around here and there. But I think most people, if they do know the band, they probably know Distance.
sure.
So I think that's an important one to do. But for things like Resolve, it's fun to kind of show that side. But for right now, we swapped out Talk and Walk
Hmm.
because we wanted something a bit more heavier there in that spot. So it's always we don't have this same set list that we just don't change. We're very, very much paying attention to the audience and the responses and seeing what we can do to make it better.
I'm surprised that the Big Picture hasn't been in the set list for the GNR shows. That seems like that would have been automatic.
Yeah, the only reason with that one that usually kind of takes a sitting out is because it requires a whole separate guitar change.
Makes sense.
And if we have like a really well flowing thing where we can just kind of sit with the same two guitars, that's why. But we might pull it out at some point.
So, gear-wise, I wanted to ask about the guitars you brought out on the tour. And it's funny because right when that came to mind as I was driving home from Hershey, like the next day, it's like you tweeted out, here's what I'm using
Yeah,
guitar-wise.
a whole
And then
bunch of gear stuff. Yeah.
yeah, then it's like you tweeted like a thing of the effects board. I'm like, great minds. But so talk about the guitars you brought out on the tour. Like, is there a good story behind any of them? Like, any of them have fun history?
Not too much, other than the historic Burst 335
Yeah,
59 reissue that I have. That's kind of been my main guitar throughout. I've been writing on that guitar for forever, and it's all over the album too. So it's just kind of one of the mains. And then I have the backup to that, which is the Trini Lopez, uh, which which I think is really cool. I just like how it's got a different headstock and then diamond inlays and F holes. It's just a fun little alternate. Um, and then the other two I have are it's the Wolfgang Custom,
hmm
which is also all over the album. And then the backup to that I have is the 5150 series, which I have yet to pull out, but when I do, you'll see it.
Do you get a lot of gear questions like that from fans? Like, it almost seemed like either that fans are into that, or you're kind of anticipating it by like putting that stuff out on Twitter.
Yeah. A couple people were asking, so I figured I'd just kind of quote the tweet, and so
Nice.
all the gear nerds can check it out.
Well, I'm sure you used a lot of different things on the record. How complicated was it figuring out like what you were going to take out gear wise?
Honestly, it was because we're just bringing one guitar boat, and each one of us can have four guitars, so it's just a matter of kind of honing that down and like what exactly do we need and which tunings do we have.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was pretty much it.
Well, so last couple things here. This first thing is a two-part question of sorts. There's the great video on Instagram of you recreating the synthesizer part from Sunday afternoon in the park. What's kind of the trigger moment that found you digging that particular piece of gear out? And I guess related to that, what was it like figuring out recreating those sounds?
It had been sitting in the studio while we were tracking, and the whole time Elvis and I were like, "We've got to find a place for that. It'd be so cool to hear that on the album."
Oh,
And
nice.
so it was that one verse in Mr. Ed where we were like, "I think we should break it out. Let's see what it sounds like," and it really worked.
Oh, that's fun. That's awesome. Yeah, that was kind of the second half. So you anticipated how it wound up there. So awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, things are pretty crazy out there with the ongoing pandemic. There's band members and
Mhm.
crew folks, testing positive. Shows get postponed. For you, like, how are you dealing with the whole thing being out there, and like, what sort of things as far as COVID safety protocol are you kind of experiencing day to day?
It's very nerve wracking. I'm a super germophobic sort of guy, so we've got our whole bubble of people on here. We're all being safe. We're all being tested. We're all vaccinated. We're all wearing our masks every opportunity we can,
Yeah,
and we're just kind of staying in the bubble, being as safe as possible. I'm not here to argue about political leanings on wearing a mask or
sure.
or the vaccination. Basically, I just don't. I'm a singer, and I don't want a respiratory illness, so I'm going to do everything to avoid it.
Yeah.
I don't care if it doesn't kill you, or if it's not that bad. I just don't want a respiratory illness because it'll ruin my job.
Our editor wondered, like, how worried are you about the tour ending early because of, like, kind of the events that are going on presently?
Yeah, at this point, we just kind of take it day by day,
Yeah,
and
it's a
uh,
weird
and
time.
just assess and move forward and see what happens. So could that happen? It absolutely could. For right now, we're just kind of taking it step by step.
So, what has been your favorite moment out on the road so far?
Honestly, just being on stage.
Yeah,
It's been a really different experience. Like I've done it before, but doing it with Mammoth and the guys with our material, it's a pretty amazing experience to see people enjoy it, to see people know it, and wearing the shirts in the audience. It's crazy.
well, I want to let you run, and I guess the final thing I'll throw in for the nerds is just what's your current video game that you're just all about right now?
Frank and I, the other guitar player, we've been playing Apex Legends a
Nice.
lot
Who's
because the
better?
new season just dropped. I think Frank's better than me, but I'm starting to because he plays a lot more than I do, but I'm starting to catch up to him.
Nice. Very cool.
But yeah, it's the new season just dropped, so we're trying to find desperately trying to find the right internet connection at hotels so we can play.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, thank you as always for the time, and it's just thrilling to see you out there, and good luck as things continue to roll, man.
Thank you so much, man. You have a good one.
All right, thanks, man. Bye bye.
Bye.
There you have it. There's Wolfgang Van Halen. Mammoth WVH has a whole bunch of tour dates out there right now with Guns N' Roses, and they are also playing a few headlining shows, so get out and check this band out if they're coming your way. Find more from Mammoth WVH by clicking the link in this video's description, and make sure to subscribe to our UCR channel here on YouTube for all of the best news and history of classic rock and pop culture.